Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a brand new set from Art Impressions to show you. And in this set you get the two swans that we'll be using today. You also get two flamingos, those little cattails, some little rocks. There's a couple of little ducks and two owls. It's the same owl in two different sizes, which is really nice. Today we're going to be using these swans. So let's go ahead and grab some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock and the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a permanent black ink. I've placed that cardstock in my mini MISTI stamp positioner, and then I'm going to use my little Stampendable stamp press to press that out. So let's go ahead and do some quick coloring. I've got bright yellow and scarlet red. I'll start off with that yellow and add a little red at the base of the beak and then pull it out towards the tip of the beak. Now these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and I'm using the Zig Blender pen to do the blending. I've got tea rose and light gray. I'll add a little bit of the tea rose to the cheeks on our swans, and then we'll add that light gray around the edges just for a little bit of shadowing. So I thought these swans would be fantastic for a Valentine card, an anniversary card, but most especially for a wedding card. I think this would just be beautiful. We're going to keep our colors very subtle and very elegant. So now that I've colored that in, I'm going to grab my detail scissors. I'll leave a little tiny bit of a border around the edges. You can see that all colored in. Let's grab the largest die from the Rectangle A2 double stitch dies from Art Impressions. I'm placing that on a little bit of an angle to run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Now I die cut two of these panels. So for this first one, we're going to be using the Secret Garden Window. This is from Lawn Fawn. We'll actually be using all of those little pieces in there. There's some little florals as well. We'll come back to those a bit later. So let's take the die that has all the floral pieces on it, and I'm going to line it up on this first cardstock panel, and I'm using my MISTI ruler to do that. This is a nice little T ruler, and it will help me line that up nice and straight. I do want to make sure it's straight because everything from here on out is going to be based off of this center piece. So we can die cut that, and then for that second arch, we're going to use the Gina K Masking Magic. So let's go ahead and grab a piece that's a little bit larger than that panel that we die cut, and we can go ahead and die cut this center out of this Masking Magic. So I'm just going to quickly tape that down, and we'll run both of these through the die cutting machine. Now you could certainly create a window with this by using both of those dies together. So if I were to have lined those two dies up at the same time on my cardstock, I could have cut out that window separately. But I wanted to do a bit of masking. So you can see I have that masking paper, and I'm going to line it up with the images behind it. And if you hold it up to the light, you'll be able to see exactly where that is. Then I traced that masking paper with a pencil, and now I can go ahead and remove the backing. So we're just going to mask off. I remove just half of the backing at a time so I can get this lined up really well. Once I have that lined up, I'm just using my Cricut weeding tool, and I can pull off the rest of the backing. So I'm going to press that down nice and tightly, and then any pencil lines that are showing at this point, you can go ahead and erase those. And later, if we see any more after we remove that masking paper, we can always erase those as well. So I'm just going to erase any of those pencil marks. Now I've got the Hero Arts bold prints. This is called Bursting with Love, and this is so pretty with all these little hearts. Because it is a thick red rubber stamp, I'm going to remove that pad from my MISTI, and I'll go ahead and do my stamping. So I'm lining this up right in the corner. Then we know it's lined up nice and straight. We can go ahead and pick that up, and let's place our card panel inside. I have the sticky mat in there, the MISTI sticky mat, so I'm going to stick that down. And then we are going to be doing some embossing. So let's place some Pink and Main anti-static powder down all over. And then we're going to grab the Hero Hues Unicorn Pigment ink. And this is an embossable ink, so I want to make sure I ink this up really well. I'm just going all around it quite a few times to get a nice inking. And then I'm going back to that stamp press. We'll press that out. Take a little bit of time, and you might want to add a little pressure here to make sure you get a nice stamping. And now we can remove that cardstock. We're going to keep that mask on there and do our embossing. So I've got some embossing powder, and this is absolutely gorgeous. This is from Hero Arts, and it's called White Satin Pearl. And it's just so pretty. It's going to give this background a beautiful pearlized effect. So let's go ahead and sprinkle this on all over, just kind of avoiding that masking paper, but you don't need to. You can certainly just go right over the top. So I'll just sprinkle that on and tap off any excess. Once I have that done, we can place any of that leftover powder right back in the container. And let's go ahead and get our heat tool and heat set this. Now I know it'll be a little difficult for you to see, but it's going to have this beautiful satin shimmer to it. So I'll make sure that I heat the whole entire panel. And when you're doing your heat setting, you want to make sure that all of the areas look shiny. If you see any little dark areas, go back over that with your heat tool because it's probably not completely embossed. Once that's done, let's grab the Speckled Egg Distress Oxide from Tim Holtz, and we're going to go over this entire panel. Now I'm going to keep the edges a little bit darker, and I'm going to have it get a little bit lighter as I go in towards the center. But I do want ink all over. I'm just going to keep it lighter in the middle part. So I started off going all the way around the edges, and then I moved in towards the center a little bit. Now remember, we have that masking paper down, so we're not going to get any on that frame. So basically that masking tape is creating a frame around that secret window that we have. Now again, going back to those dies, as I mentioned earlier, you could certainly use the two dies together and create a frame, a dimensional frame. I didn't want that dimension. I wanted it to be flush with the card, more one-dimensional for this layer. So that's why I'm using the masking tape, but you can certainly do it the other way as well. Once you do that, you do want to take a dry towel, clean towel, just wipe off any excess ink that's sitting up on top of your embossing because it really just won't dry. Now I've got that Cricut weeding tool. I'm going to pop off that mask and look at how beautiful this is. Now I've got that other mask which you could certainly use if you wanted to color in the greenery. Then you could place that mask down and it will protect all the blue area that you've done, and you could do the greenery in different shades of greens and any colors that you like. Now going back to that secret garden window from Lawn Fawn, again, as I mentioned earlier, get all these little flowers and a couple little sprigs. I'm going to go ahead and die cut these out of some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. I do want to keep these white. Again, I'm going for a very elegant, soft look. So I'm going to keep these the white, and I'm going to die cut just quite a few of these. I wasn't sure at this point exactly how many I needed, so I went ahead and die cut quite a few of these. Now you can see for one of those flowers it pops out the little center, and the other smaller one is solid. Now I've got a piece of cardstock, and this measures 4 1/4 by 2 inches. And as I was placing it on the card, that's going to be for our water, I wanted to have it that little stitched line that we have at the top there of our border. So I just grabbed that same die, and I'm just going to run this through the die cutting machine to give me that little stitch border at the top of the water. Now, not a lot of this showed, so you don't really need to do this if you don't want to, but I ran that through, and you can see now we can go ahead and add some ink. So I've got the Speckled Egg and then the Peacock feathers. I'm going to add that Speckled Egg all over. And I'm using a Hero Arts blending brush to do all of my blending. And then with the peacock feathers, I'll add some down towards the bottom of this panel, and then I'll kind of blend those two together. I'm cleaning off my brush off camera. I'm just rubbing it onto a dry towel, just taking off some of that darker ink. And then I'm just checking it. I wanted to add a little bit more of that darker shade. And then I'll go ahead and clean off that brush again, and then add some more speckled egg and do a bit more blending. You can do as much or as little blending here as you like. Also, keep in mind that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. So now once that was all set, you can see how that's going to sit behind our little secret garden window. And I want to add some of the speckled egg to the sky in the background. So we're going to continue this pretty color on the inside of the window, but I don't want too much of it. I just want to come in where that window is, a little bit darker on the edges, and then almost go to white as I get in towards the center. So I'm really just kind of blending that almost to white in the center. And I'm just checking that to make sure I have that lined up properly. Now we can go ahead and grab that peacock feathers again. I'm going to place some directly onto my glass medium mat. I'll spritz that with a little bit of water from my distress sprayer, and then we can go ahead and spatter this panel, and that's really going to make this look so pretty. It gives it kind of a whimsical look, a very kind of magical look. So you can let that dry. Let's work on those little flowers. I've got my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and again, I'm going to keep everything white. So I've got that smaller flower. I'm going to take the center from this flower here, and I'll go ahead and place it on the smaller flower, and then I can lay that larger piece over top. That way I can keep the centers intact. So I'm just using that smaller flower so that I can assemble that larger flower. So let's go ahead and add some glue to the water, and we can tuck that in behind the secret window, and I'm just lining it up right with the bottom of that card panel. Now let's add our little swans, and I'll just put a little bit of glue right down at the bottom of these, and I'll just kind of spread that out with my fingers, and then I'm going to slide that right in behind here, just behind those flowers. I'm going to center that. And then I thought I would pop this up on the card. So I'm going to grab some of my 3D foam tape, and we'll place this all around the back. Now, if you wanted to create a shaker card, this would be a great way to do this. You can make sure all of your 3D foam tape is edge to edge, and put some little elements in there if you like, some little sequins or whatever you want to do. I didn't want to create a shaker, but you certainly could. I'm just going to then attach that to that other card panel, and now we can go ahead and add our little flowers. So I'm just going to lay these out just to get an idea of where I'd like everything to be, and then I can start adding these pieces. So I'm going to add some of these leaves first. Now you could certainly lay out the whole design first and then glue everything down. Just going to kind of play around with this. I can always move it if I need to. While that glue is wet, I can move things around a little bit, so I'm not too worried about it. Let's go ahead and add a couple little flowers here. I think we'll add 3 of those. And you could certainly pop some of these up. Now we'll be adding a little bit more dimension and color to these. We're going to be adding some sequins. So that's going to give these a really pretty shimmer. But I'm also going to be using one of those flowers and sprigs for the banner that we're going to be placing our sentiment on. So here again, I'm just kind of cutting off a little bit of that one. Was a little too long, and now that looks a little bit better. That fills that area in a little bit more. So again, we'll set those extra pieces aside, And now I've got that banner die. That is from the Art Impressions Decorative Journal Page 2 die set. And look at, you get this beautiful frame in here. You get a couple pieces that help you create the pages for your journals. So I've got that banner die. I'm running it through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. And I've got that pretty turquoise cardstock. And for the sentiment, I'm going to be using the Friend sentiment set from Art Impression. And look at all these fantastic sentiments you get. I'm going to use that one down at the bottom that says Better Together. So again, that would be great for Valentine's Day, anniversary, or wedding. So let's go ahead and place this in the Mini Misty Stamp Positioner. I'll go ahead and line that up. Now, I'm just adjusting it a little bit for the angle of that banner. So I'm just kind of fussing around with that stamp just a little bit, give it a little bit of a curve, and then we can go ahead and stamp this. Now, I do want to say that here I stamped it in the black VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I changed my mind later on. I will show you what I did, but I went ahead and stamped this. I used that white satin pearl, and I placed that all over, and I embossed this. But I really wasn't sure that I liked the look. I continued on with the project and assembled everything, but in the end, I decided it just was a little bit too bold. I wanted to keep it very soft. So now I've die cut a couple more of those turquoise banners, and I glued all three of those together. That'll give us a nice thick embellishment. I've got the Hero Arts Unicorn Pigment ink and a foam applicator tool, and I'm going to go all around the edges of that. Again, just trying to soften those edges. I'm going to place this right above that arch, and I'll use some small foam squares from scrapbook.com. I'm going to place them mostly up at the top of this banner, and then a few on the little tails of the banner. We can go ahead and remove that backing. Again, I'm using that Cricut weeding tool just to pop off the backing. You can just poke that tool right down into that backing and pull it right off. Makes it really quick and easy to do. So let's go ahead and center this. And then I'm going to add a couple little flowers or just a single flower and a little bit of a sprig or some leaves off to the side of that. So I'm going to cut this down just slightly, and then we can go ahead and glue these together. So let's place those leaves down, and then we'll pop that flower in place. Let's create the card base. This is going to be a standard A2 size card. So that cardstock measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I'm scoring it at 5 1/2 inches. So this will be a top folding A2 size card. And now we can attach this to the front of the card. So let's go ahead and attach that panel. I'm using that Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. I'm sliding it right into place. And to add just a little bit more sparkle, I'm using the Teal Opalescent Color Essential Sequins from Spellbinders. And these are just so pretty. And you do get 3 different sizes of these sequins, so that makes it really nice. So what I'm going to do is place one in the center of each of these flowers. I think I selected the medium size, and then we're going to place a smaller one inside of that. So it's really going to give those centers a little bit of pop. Let's go ahead. I'm using my Marvy jewel picker to pick up these little sequins and pop them right into place. And then again, I'm going to go back and pick some smaller ones, and I'll pop those right in the center of each of these. And it really does add a lot to these little flowers. Just kind of ties everything together. So once that was all done, here's where I grabbed my Wink of Stella glitter pen, and I'm going to add a little bit of glitter to each of those little berries on those stems. And again, that'll just give a little bit more sparkle. So anywhere I see those little berries is where I'm adding that. I've got the Dress My Craft little pastel hearts. These are the blue hearts, pastel blue, and I'm going to add 3 of these right above these little swans. And they kind of gave the effect of maybe like little bubbles coming from the water in the shape of hearts. So now here's where you can see I switched this up. I used the super fine detail white embossing powder. I used the unicorn white ink, and I stamped that and embossed it. And then I placed that right over top of the one that was there in the black. And I just popped those little flowers off. I was able to pull them off, and I'm just going to place them right back down. So you'll never know that that other sentiment is underneath there. I just thought this gave it a lot softer look. I just love that shimmer that we get from the satin pearl heart background and these beautiful little swans. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.